Michael's hands trembled as he ended the phone call. His wife Grace looked up from grading papers, sensing trouble in his expression. "Honey, we need to talk," Michael said, loosening his tie nervously. Grace set down her red pen. "What's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost." "My family called. They're coming to visit us." Grace smiled. "That's nice. When?" "Tomorrow. For 3 weeks." The smile vanished from Grace's face. Their tiny 2-bedroom apartment barely fit the two of them. Their bank account was practically empty after paying bills. And the secret she'd been carrying, the pregnancy test hidden in her drawer, made everything more complicated. 3 weeks, Michael. Where will they sleep? What will we feed them? We can barely. Knock. 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 The aggressive pounding on their door made both of them freeze. Grace's heart sank as she recognized the familiar rhythm, authoritative, demanding, unmistakably his mother's knock. "They said tomorrow," Michael whispered in panic. Grace rushed to the window and peeked through the curtain. A taxi was parked outside, luggage scattered on the ground, and 4 figures stood at their door. "Tomorrow just became today," she whispered back. The invasion had begun. The door swung open to reveal Mama Victoria in all her commanding glory. At 60, she carried herself like a queen inspecting conquered territory. Her eyes swept the small apartment with obvious disappointment. "My son," she declared, pushing past Grace to embrace Michael. "We decided to surprise you." Behind her came the parade of relatives. Uncle David, 45 and perpetually unemployed, immediately claimed the best chair. Sister Nancy, 22 with the energy of a gossip columnist, began examining every photo on the wall. Grandma Esther, 80 years of pure tradition, tapped her walking stick disapprovingly at the modern furniture. "Welcome, Mama," Grace forced herself to smile, though her jaw ached from the effort. "I wish we had known you were coming today. We would have prepared better." Mama Victoria's eyes narrowed. "A good wife is always prepared for family." Uncle David stretched lazily. "Grace, where's the food? That journey was long, and we are starving." Nancy giggled. "This apartment is so tiny. How do you two even move around?" Grandma shook her head. "Young people today live like sardines in a can." As Grace hurried to the kitchen, she caught Mama Victoria whispering to the others, "We must watch this Grace closely. She is hiding something from my son." Grace's hand instinctively moved to her stomach. How did she know? Morning arrived like a battlefield. Grace's alarm rang at 5:30, but the apartment was already buzzing with chaos. Everyone wanted breakfast, but no one offered to help prepare it. "Grace, where is my tea?" Grandma called from the living room. "Sister-in-law, do you have sugar? This porridge tastes like water," Uncle David complained. Nancy rummaged through Grace's phone, which she'd carelessly left charging. "Grace, who is this man calling you, sweetheart, in your messages?" "That's my brother, Nancy. Please put my phone down." Grace grabbed her school bag, already running late. She kissed Michael goodbye and whispered urgently, "Your car keys are on the kitchen counter. Don't let anyone." "I'll handle everything," Michael assured her. But when Grace returned from school that evening, she found Uncle David washing Michael's car in the compound. Nancy was gossiping with neighbors about their small apartment. Grandma sat criticizing their television programs. "Where's Michael?" Grace asked. "He went to look for you," Mama Victoria replied coldly. "Where were you all day?" "At work. Teaching. Like every weekday for the past 3 years." Grace found Michael in their bedroom, staring at the ceiling. "How was your day?" he asked without looking at her. Grace sat on the bed and burst into tears. The morning assembly at Grace's school began like any other day. Students lined up in neat rows, teachers took their positions, and the headmaster began the opening prayer. But halfway through the national anthem, the world started spinning. Grace gripped the podium as her vision blurred. The students' voices became distant echoes. "Mrs. Grace." A colleague caught her as she collapsed. 2 hours later, Grace sat in the clinic, staring at the doctor's bright smile. "Congratulations, Mrs. Grace. You're 2 months pregnant. Your baby is healthy, but you need rest and proper nutrition." Grace's emotions soared: joy, fear, excitement, and overwhelming worry. How could she raise a child in their current chaos? How could she tell Michael with his family breathing down their necks? "I recommend reducing stress," the doctor continued. "Avoid conflicts and get support from family." Grace almost laughed. Support from family. That was exactly what was missing. As she left the clinic, she nearly collided with someone at the entrance. Mama Victoria stood there, eyes wide with shock, clearly having witnessed Grace's exit from the maternity ward. "Grace," Mama Victoria said slowly, "is there something you need to tell me?" Grace's secret was no longer secret. But why wasn't Mama Victoria demanding answers? Why did she look almost protective? "We'll talk at home," Mama Victoria said gently, surprising Grace with her tone. The transformation was subtle but undeniable. Mama Victoria, who had spent days criticizing Grace's every move, suddenly became helpful. She took over breakfast duties, insisted Grace rest after work, and even defended her against Nancy's gossip. "Mama, why are you being so nice to Grace?" Nancy asked suspiciously. "Yesterday you said she was." "Yesterday I was tired from traveling," Mama Victoria cut her off sharply. "Grace is my daughter-in-law. I should support her." Uncle David scratched his head. "But Mama, you said." "I said many things. Now I'm saying something different." Grace watched this transformation with confusion and cautious hope. Was Mama Victoria finally accepting her? Or was this part of some larger plan? Meanwhile, Nancy's curiosity led her to Michael's desk drawer while he was at work. Hidden beneath old newspapers, she found bank statements, unpaid bills, and loan documents. Her eyes widened as she calculated the numbers. Michael owed more money than he earned in 6 months. "Uncle David," she whispered excitedly, "come look at this." Uncle David examined the papers and smiled wickedly. "If we expose Michael's financial problems to the family, this marriage will scatter like leaves in the wind. Then Mama Victoria will blame Grace for everything." Nancy giggled. "Should we tell everyone tonight?" "Not yet," Uncle David said, pocketing some documents. "Let me handle this my own way first." They didn't notice Grandma listening from the hallway, her wise eyes taking in every word. Michael's worst nightmare materialized on a Wednesday morning. His salary, already 2 weeks late, wouldn't arrive for another week. The landlord's patience had evaporated, and the rent was due immediately. "My friend," the landlord said firmly, "I need my money today. No more excuses." Michael promised to sort everything out, but his bank account mocked him with its emptiness. That afternoon, while he was frantically calling colleagues for emergency loans, Uncle David made his move. Using Michael's identity and some creative storytelling, Uncle David visited 3 different lenders in town. He spun tales of urgent family medical bills and promising business opportunities, borrowing money against Michael's name and reputation. By evening, Grace was preparing dinner when her phone buzzed with unknown numbers. "Mrs. Grace. This is Bright Loans Limited. Your husband borrowed 50,000 naira from us last week. When is he paying back?" Grace's confusion deepened when 2 more calls came with similar demands. Loans she knew nothing about. Money they'd never received. The final blow came at 7:30 that evening. A loud, aggressive knock rattled their door. "Michael Johnson. Come out now." Grace opened the door to find a stocky man in a wrinkled suit, flanked by two stern-looking associates. "Where is your husband? He owes us money, and we want it today." The entire compound heard every word. Neighbors peered from their windows. Grace's face burned with embarrassment and confusion. "There must be some mistake," she stammered. "No mistake, madam. Pay up or face disgrace." The confrontation exploded the moment Michael walked through the door. Grace stood in the center of their small living room, surrounded by his relatives, holding loan documents and phone numbers she'd never seen before. "Michael, what is this?" Grace's voice trembled with barely controlled anger. "People are calling about money you borrowed. Loan sharks came to our door threatening us." Michael stared at the papers, his face going pale. "I don't understand. I never took these loans." Uncle David shifted uncomfortably in his chair, avoiding eye contact. "Don't lie to me." Grace's voice rose. "Our neighbors heard everything. I was humiliated in front of the entire compound." "Grace, please calm down," Mama Victoria intervened. "There must be an explanation." "Calm down." Grace whirled around. "Your son is destroying our reputation, and you want me to calm down? I work hard every day, I respect this family, and this is what I get in return." Nancy whispered loudly to Grandma Esther, "See how she talks to her husband in front of elders." "I can hear you, Nancy." Grace snapped. "And I'm tired of pretending everything is fine when it's not." The room erupted in arguments. Voices overlapped, accusations flew, and respect crumbled like old bread. Suddenly, thwack! Grandma Esther's walking stick struck the floor with the force of a judge's gavel. The room fell silent instantly. "Tomorrow," she declared with quiet authority, "the elders will hear about this marriage problem." The morning sun filtered through their small windows as relatives gathered in the living room like a tribunal. Grandma presided from the center chair, Mama Victoria sat with ceremonial dignity, and Grace felt like she was on trial for crimes she didn't commit. "We are here," Grandma began formally, "to discuss the problems in this house." Michael fidgeted nervously beside Grace, his usual confidence nowhere to be found. Mama Victoria cleared her throat. "Before we begin, there is something everyone should know." She looked directly at Grace. "Grace is pregnant." The announcement hit the room like lightning. Nancy gasped dramatically. Uncle David's jaw dropped. Michael turned to stare at Grace in complete shock. "Pregnant?" Michael whispered. "Grace, is this true?" Grace nodded, tears already forming. This wasn't how she'd planned to share the news. But instead of joy, Uncle David's voice cut through the moment. "How convenient. Grace traps my nephew with a pregnancy when the marriage is having problems." Nancy joined in eagerly. "And how do we know the baby is even Michael's? She's always secretive, always hiding things." "Enough." Michael roared, but the damage was spreading like wildfire. "Maybe," he said quietly, his words barely audible, "maybe I married the wrong woman." Grace felt her heart shatter into 1,000 pieces. The man she loved, the father of her unborn child, had just destroyed her in front of his entire family. She stood up slowly, dignity intact despite her breaking heart. "If that's how you feel," she said calmly, "then I'll make it easy for you." Grace's suitcase sat open on their bed like a wand in the room. She folded clothes methodically, each item a memory she was packing away forever. Michael stood in the doorway, watching his life disintegrate. "Grace, don't do this. We can work it out." She didn't look up. "Work what out, Michael? You just told your family you married the wrong woman. I won't raise my child in a house where I'm not wanted." "I didn't mean it. I was angry, confused." "You meant every word." Grace's voice was steady, resolved. "Your family came here to prove I wasn't good enough for you. Congratulations. Mission accomplished. In the living room, Mama Victoria watched her son's marriage crumble and felt an unexpected stab of regret. She pulled him aside. "Michael, if your wife leaves, you lose everything," she whispered urgently. "A good woman, your child, your future. Is your pride worth that much?" But Grace was already walking toward the front door, suitcase in hand. She had called her parents, and they were coming to get her. She reached for the door handle, took a deep breath, and opened the door to start her new life. Standing on the doorstep were her parents, Mr. Isaac and Madam Hope, with expressions that could melt steel. "Grace," her father said quietly, "we came as soon as we got your call. But first, we want to hear exactly what happened to our daughter." Grace looked back at Michael's family, then at her parents. The real confrontation was about to begin. The small apartment became a battlefield as two families faced each other across the living room. Mr. Isaac, Grace's father, stood like a protective wall beside his daughter. Madam Hope, Grace's mother, surveyed Michael's relatives with the cold assessment of a general planning war. "So," Mr. Isaac said slowly, "this is how you treat our daughter. In our culture, we welcome in-laws with respect. What culture is this?" Mama Victoria bristled. "Your daughter disrespects my son. She argues with him in front of elders. After your family borrowed money in his name and embarrassed her publicly." Madam Hope shot back. "What kind of family ruins their own son's reputation?" Uncle David tried to defend himself. "It was a misunderstanding." "Misunderstanding?" Mr. Isaac's voice rose. "You stole money using my son-in-law's name. That's called fraud." Nancy, never one to stay quiet, jumped in. "Your daughter trapped our brother with pregnancy." Madam Hope's eyes flashed dangerously. "My daughter is educated, employed, and respectable. She doesn't need to trap anyone." The insults flew faster than arrows. Old grudges surfaced. Cultural differences became weapons. Pride and tradition collided in spectacular fashion. "Your son doesn't deserve our grace," Madam Hope declared. "Your daughter isn't good enough for our Michael." Mama Victoria fired back. In the middle of the chaos, Grandma tried to stand, her walking stick trembling in her hand. "Stop this madness," she called out, but her voice was drowned in the argument. Suddenly, she clutched her chest and collapsed backward into her chair, her breathing becoming labored. Both families froze as they realized what their anger had done. The hospital waiting room felt like a prayer chapel. Two families who had been at each other's throats now sat in tense silence, united only by their concern for Grandma Esther. Dr. Emmanuel emerged from the emergency room, removing his stethoscope. "She's stable now," he announced, bringing collective sighs of relief. "But I must warn you, this episode was triggered by severe stress. Mrs. needs complete peace and calm. Any more emotional upheaval could be dangerous." Michael buried his face in his hands. His pride and stubbornness had nearly killed his grandmother. His marriage was destroyed, his wife was leaving, and his family was fractured beyond recognition. Grace sat beside her parents, one hand unconsciously protecting her growing belly. The baby would grow up without knowing its father's family, maybe without knowing its father at all. Mama Victoria stared at the hospital floor, finally understanding the destruction she had helped create. Her son was miserable, her daughter-in-law was gone, and her mother-in-law had nearly died from the stress of their family war. Madam Hope and Mr. Isaac whispered quietly to each other, occasionally glancing at Michael's family with expressions of disgust and pity. The silence stretched endlessly until Mama Victoria slowly stood up and walked across the waiting room to where Grace sat. "Grace," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. Grace looked up, expecting another confrontation. Instead, Mama Victoria knelt down in front of her, shocking everyone in the room. "I'm sorry," she said simply. "I was wrong." The apology hung in the air like morning mist, fragile and unexpected. Who would respond first? Mama Victoria's knees touched the cold hospital floor as she looked up at Grace with eyes full of genuine remorse. I came to your house ready to find fault, she admitted. I was afraid of losing my son to marriage, so I decided you weren't good enough before I even knew you. Grace felt tears building, but she remained silent. You work hard, you respect our traditions, you care for Michael, and I repaid your kindness with suspicion and cruelty. Mama Victoria's voice cracked. I nearly destroyed my son's happiness because of my own fears. Grace helped Mama Victoria to her feet, their eyes meeting with new understanding. Mama Victoria, I forgive you, Grace said simply. But the hurt runs deep. It will take time to heal. Michael stepped forward, his face wet with tears. Grace, I'm sorry doesn't even begin to cover what I've done. I chose pride over love, family politics over my wife. I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'm begging for a chance to earn it back. Easter. Isaac and Madam Hope watched their daughter's face, ready to support whatever decision she made. Grace placed her hand on her stomach. This baby deserves a father who will protect our family, not divide it. I promise, Michael whispered. Our family comes first. Always. Mama Victoria announced, we'll cut our visit short. You two need space to rebuild. From the corner, Uncle David tried sneaking toward the hospital exit with a suspicious bulge under his shirt, Michael's portable radio he'd borrowed. Grandma Esther, despite her weakness, spotted him immediately. David, she shouted, her voice echoing through the hospital corridor. Bring back that radio and apologize to your nephew. Uncle David froze like a child caught stealing cookies, the radio tumbling to the floor. The entire waiting room burst into laughter, patients, nurses, and both families united in the absurdity of the moment. For the first time in weeks, Grace laughed until her sides hurt. Michael wrapped his arms around her, and she didn't pull away. Family is not just about living under one roof, but about respecting boundaries, supporting one another, and allowing love to lead instead of fear and pride. When in-laws and couples put aside their egos and embrace understanding, homes become sanctuaries instead of battlefields. Marriage requires protection from both partners, not just against outside threats, but against the poison of family politics and cultural expectations. Sometimes the greatest strength comes from admitting weakness. Sometimes the deepest love is shown through forgiveness. And sometimes, laughter truly is the medicine that heals hearts and restores broken relationships. Uncle David learned that stealing is wrong, Nancy learned that gossip destroys families, and Grandma learned that wisdom means knowing when to speak and when to listen. Most importantly, Michael and Grace learned that a marriage built on respect, communication, and mutual protection can survive even the stormiest family visits. After all, home is not where you're